Is this biometric transaction, is that what we're into here if this comes forward?
Well, in some ways we're already there and people aren't realising it. This is the whole thing with technology. It always happens faster than you notice, although it does usually take longer to actually get introduced. Biometrics can be in many forms. It may be facial recognition, and there are trials going on with that already. There's one actually with schools in Scotland last year. And it's kind of interesting that earlier on in the programme you're talking about education. And in last week's show you're talking about, I think it was children being experimented with having burgers made of insects. So it seems like we actually do a lot of this stuff with children already. And there was an experiment with some Scottish schools in October of last year of using facial recognition for them to pay for their meals in school. That got cancelled after a couple of weeks.
Emma Webb, what does all this, how does it chime with you, this idea?
Despair. I am so horrified by the idea of this, and even the idea that, you know, my money is not my identity. I don't want to be in taking part in economic transactions. There should be no link with who I am as an individual. That's part of our liberty. It's one thing that worries me about the cashless society, but I had to do a double take when I read this story that it's not just cash but also cards. And I'm really resistant to using my mobile phone to pay for things. I've been in restaurants where they've only taken phone payments, and I think that itself is almost a kind of violation of my freedom. If it's legal tender, I should be able to pay with it. And I don't feel comfortable with this movement away from cash. But the idea of using biometrics in economic transactions, I think, is really dystopian.
Really dystopian, Emma Burnell? You for her again?
I think I know I'm supposed to be the dissenting voice, but actually, I really worry that we're putting far, far too much of our society in the hands of a few small corporations, is my worry. And not that I think that that Elon Musk is sitting behind a desk rubbing his hands evilly and plotting, but that their purposes, their bottom line is not my bottom line. And I worry that if we go too far down the line where a few small technology providers can stop us from buying things and can stop us from accessing things that are essential needs, then that could be vastly manipulated in ways that I find quite horrifying, actually.
What do you think, hearing that, Gary? I feel that the freedom to transact trumps freedom of speech. It's a close-run thing, but I think if you can't freely transact, then you can't do anything. And whether you can speak or not falls into second place for me. You know, where is personal privacy in all of this? I think it's critical, and I agree with the thing that there is the risk that all because we can do things with technology, that doesn't mean we should do. I think absolutely we need to have the conversation at least about, you know, whether people will accept it or not. If you speak to children, most children's schools now have got biometrics in the canteen. It's just that they use fingerprint ID. And that's been in place for a number of schools. I would guess about half schools. I actually checked with my local school. They're already fingerprints?
They're already using fingerprints. And the only reason they stopped for a while was because of the risk of COVID infection with touching surfaces. So it's already been rolled out in some ways. And I think that's quite interesting because if you get to the children early and you get them to adopt it and accept it, they don't even think to question it.